are joined today by our very own Conor McCann, who might actually be happy this week.
For once on a podcast, I'm coming in full of good spirits. So.
Nathan Torres as well. He's got a Celtic top on. He's actually proud to be a Celtic fan this week as well.
Aye, it's about time. It's only taken 6 months, but hey ho.
And we're joined by Angus from the Talk Livy podcast and Sam from the Dog or Saints podcast. How you doing, boys?
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Not bad, Dave. Thanks for having us on, guys.
We thought we might change it up this week since both your teams are in the cup final.
What a novelty that is.
Right, we'll just get right into it. Obviously, we're kind of planning to opening with the fact that there's a League Cup final this weekend and both your teams are in it. But today's news, obviously, pressing matters. McCann, talk us through it. You must be buzzing, surely. We've listened to you for the last 3 months.
I mean, that's what it is now, isn't it? I mean, it's Torres kind of alluded to, it's 6 months too late. I mean, with 8 games to go, 18 points back, it's just all been hopeless, mate, to be honest with you. But at least it puts any kind of doubt about who's going to be in charge next season, if he's going to stay or not. At least it puts that to bed. So at least we can finally start looking forward and see what the future holds. And to be honest, I don't know where most of the kind of proportion of the blame should lie. For me, it should lie at Peter Lawwell's, though. Honestly, since the announcement was made, I have been permanently happy since the announcement that he's retiring has been made. I mean, it just cannot come quick enough for me. But to be honest, I'm just delighted. I'm delighted to see the back of him, but I'm slightly sceptical for the future, I would say.
Still adamant you want Graham Potter ball played at Celtic Park?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've been on record previously saying that would be my first choice. I think the way Brighton play is fantastic, but the kind of money it's going to cost to get somebody up for the Premier League, is it going to be feasible? Possibly not. I think the bookies have got Steve Clarke as a favourite just now. Wouldn't it overly excite me, but just got to see how it pans out. And to be honest, I think it will be an appointment that hasn't really been spoken about now. Kind of similar to when Ronnie Dyler came in.
Torres, what were you? Happy?
Aye, elated. It's been a long time coming. It's been the kind of topic every single end of the weekend. It's like, surely he must go this week. And he just stayed. And here we are 6 months down the line and he's finally gone. Obviously, McCann alluded to it as well. I'm a bit sceptical myself as to where it's going, because I still believe that some of the people in the club are numpties, and we really need a manager that isn't going to get bullied by the board. So it's going to take a lot to appease the fans for what's happened this year, but we're just going to need to wait and see, to be honest.
Sam, Angus, this is obviously your first appearance in full-time football. We'll put the question to you, right? What do you reckon, Neil Lennon? Has it been a long time coming, Sam?
No, I would have kept him there till the end of the season. Purely, I'm surprised he survived as long as he did. When we got a 1-1 draw at Parkhead, St Johnstone, Elyounoussi scored like 89th minute or something to scrape a 1-1 draw. I thought that might have been it for him, but we've only taken 1 point off you in the 3 games, which is pretty unbelievable considering you're Celtic, and we should just be looking to kind of hold on in games and hope for the best. But to come out of all 3 of the games we played against you and be disappointed every time, it kind of shows you where Celtic are at the moment. So I think it probably goes hand in hand with the fact that you've probably got season ticket renewals coming out, and if he was still at the helm, then the numbers would have plummeted. So it probably goes hand in hand with that. As soon as they get a new manager in, it might spur a bit of enthusiasm again.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment as Sam. I would have loved to have seen him stay for an extra 5 years or so, but when you're at Celtic and those results keep on coming in, you can't justify keeping him on. It seemed as if every weekend in that run, you were like, oh, surely this is going to be the one. I mean, we played you twice in what, a week. Obviously, the first game that we played you had a lot of players missing out, and we drew 0-0. I think the more concerning from your aspect would have been the game at Almondvale, the Tony Macaroni Arena, even the 2-2, where obviously you had a lot of your main players back, and we actually rested players that time, and we still got a 2 each draw. Possibly could have went on to win the game if we had been awarded a penalty late on. That seemed to me to be the final nail, but yeah, you managed to keep on, and yeah, I can just imagine how frustrating it is for you, because the performances have not really got any better, and it was only a matter of time before he was punted, really.
We were kind of talking in the chat today about, like, is Neil Lennon as a manager, like, would anybody touch him after potentially walking out of Celtic or being sacked, whatever you want to call it? So I was just kind of thinking about the last hour. If the situation occurred in the next couple of years where St Johnstone or Livingston are looking for a manager, would you be disappointed with Neil Lennon coming in? Do you think that would be a good appointment?
I think with Saints don't tend to sack managers. I think the last time we sacked the manager was 2004, 2005. So they always the managers come in and move on to bigger and better things. Or to where Tommy Wright that he just kind of threw in the towel. I don't think it would ever come to that stage. I think if Callum Davison was to leave, it would probably once again come from the club, like maybe assistant Steve McLean or Liam Craig or somebody would step in. But would it be disappointed? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The guy's a rocket.
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting one, because obviously looking at most of the teams he's been at Celtic, Hibs, and then was at Bolton. Would Livingston be the right fit for him? Obviously, there's a lot talked about how Neil Lennon doesn't do an awful lot of tactics. He's more of a man manager. Would that not be enough to get by at a team like Livingston? I'm not entirely sure. I think we need a wee bit smarter than that. It might seem a bit silly for me to be talking about how Livy's manager right now seems to be more tactically aware than Neil Lennon, but recently it does appear to be so, and I'm not entirely sure if that kind of uncertainty with a budget as well, would Neil Lennon be able to cope with it? So yeah, in all honesty, I would probably turn my head at it, but it could be an interesting one perhaps 5 years from now, who knows.
Fair play. You mentioned there Martindale being more tactically acute, but let's say than Neil Lennon. Let's start with him. David Martindale, what were you thinking when he first took over in temporary charge?
Yeah, so Davey's been a part of the club for quite a while now. Obviously, not always in a coaching capacity. He kind of started out being kind of like a handyman around the club, really, kind of like at training sessions, that's phones, and even like behind the scenes. There's a couple of guys from our podcast who have been in doing some work, and Davey Martindale's been in there. He's been fitting in like new lights. He's been fitting in like tiles and stuff like that. So it just shows you like the kind of humble beginning that he had from it. But yeah, from obviously when he took over from Gary Holt. I don't think anybody would have expected that we would have went on such a massive run. We played that first game against, I think it was Ayr, in the Challenge Cup a couple of days after when he first took over, and we won 4-0. I think everybody was like, oh, it's just a bounce, it's just going to end. But to go 14 games unbeaten is absolutely tremendous. I guess it isn't too much of a surprise when you think of the fact that he was there. He was the main kind of driving force, the recruiter for when Livingston were in League One, won League One, won the playoff and the championship, and then moved up to the Premiership. So I guess in that way, when you look a wee bit deeper, no, it's not a massive surprise, but at the same time, taking Livingston from, I think we're 10th at the moment at the time, to be like challenging for European places, it's something that was completely unprecedented from everybody.
I think he was offered the job when Kenny Miller got offered it, is that right?
Yeah, he was offered it when Kenny Miller, he said basically that obviously due to his past it's been talked about more than enough, that it'd be far too soon for him to do it. I think as well he's a wee bit hesitant of going into like the top flight as well, the kind of top level. It might have been a step too far for him. So then Gary Holt ended up getting the job once Kenny Miller was basically totally, well, Kenny Miller didn't want to stop his kind of like playing style, his playing duties, and obviously went into Dundee. Gary Holt was the second choice after that, and managed to bring him in, and him and Davey seem to do terrifically well, and I think he's learned an awful lot from him that's helping him now. Can
he finish the job this weekend? Fairy tale ending?
Yeah, I would love. I think you will. Got to back your team in a cup final. He seems to be quite. I think that's something that's been most impressive of him is that in these kind of like key moments, he's managed to tweak things ever so slightly. We talk about the 2 games against Celtic. There's 2 games against Aberdeen and Hibs where obviously 2 of our bigger games of the season. He's made wee tweaks to the squad that have seen us come out quite convincing winners. I think the game against St Johnstone this weekend will be tougher than those 2 in all honesty. But yeah, I'm fully confident that he'll get it right for this weekend.
Sam, what about you? Are you feeling confident this weekend?
Well, I was Hello, that's better.
Here, yeah.
I can hear me. Aye. Before the semi-final draw was made, the teams in the draw was Hibs, St Mirren, and Livingston. And funnily enough, the one team I didn't want to draw out of that was Livingston because they seem to bring out the worst of St Johnstone. We never play good football against them. We don't play good matches against them. Hibs was actually my preferred draw. We tend to do pretty well against Hibs, so we got the win. But our form going into this couldn't be any better. We absolutely scuttled Motherwell at the weekend, and it was hard to believe that was 8 versus 9 in the table. Because Motherwell were diabolical. Saints were as good as I've seen them play in a long time. So I think the bookies have they can't split up the bookies. I've got a feeling in my bones we'll do all right. I think we'll win. Being honest, I do think we'll do the job.
Given us a score,
we always ship a goal, no matter what we do. We've only scored 5 league goals at home this season, which is shocking. Our form away from home, however, is decent. We've had 3-0 against Motherwell, beat Livy, come back to Kelly 3-2. We've had a great start to the year. Probably been the form team this year, other than the old firm. I'd go 2-1. I think we'll probably score 2. They'll score in the last 10 minutes, and we'll hold on, and it'll be a nerve-wracking last. And pretty much like the league game against Livy a few weeks back, which ended Livy's run. So hopefully that was a wee confidence boost at the boys, and because Martindale never really had to deal with defeat and how to pick up a team. He's always had a 14-game winning run. Saints going winning. I don't think Livy have won a game since. So yeah, 2-1 Saints. That's the one I'm pretty confident. I'm actually going to put money on it, which I never do. Back my own team, and I'm going to fire a couple of quid on it. I'm feeling good about it.
Sean Rooney will surely score this weekend. See that Saturday miss at the weekend there? Oh my god! 1-2 yards out, hits the crossbar.
Who's that, Rooney?
Sean Rooney.
Is that what you said there? Sorry. Aye, he was offside.
Your back's on the score.
Yeah, he's been the star player. I actually heard somewhere else that could be actually getting talked about for the Scotland squad as a decent right. I think at the moment he's the form right back, wing back in Scottish football. He's not really got much competition with O'Donnell. That's kind of the only right back we've got at the moment. But Sean Rooney, he's kind of got it all. He wasn't originally a right back. A right back. He was a right back, but he's going to be moulded into this kind of bombing up and down winger, big tire and header. I wouldn't have said that about 7 or 8 months ago that he'd have been the player he is now, but he's our star man. Him and Elamid up top came into the squad, absolutely superb. But yeah, some good goals at the weekend, looking good. Kind of coming at the right time. I wouldn't have left it any later. I think we're just hitting form at the right time now. So that's why my confidence is pretty well placed with the team at the moment.
I think as a neutral, obviously St Johnstone's definitely granted in better form. Livingston went in that brilliant run, but I think is it 4 games for that run then, Angus? I'm not sure, but it's a hard one to call. You were saying the bookies were kind of split there as well. What are you thinking, Torres?
I think it's going to be a relatively good game. St Johnstone are flying right now, but Livy seem to be faltering a wee bit after a long run, kind of unbeaten. But honestly, the worst team to go 1-0 down against Livy. That's like my nightmares. I couldn't think of anything else. Every single time Celtic have went to the Tony Macaroni, it's been an absolute turgid game. So I think it's going to be a close game, and I think it could go to penalties, to be honest. They could potentially cancel each other out. But again, it's a cup final, anything can happen. The old cliche goes.
It could be. I don't think it'll be opening free flowing. I think they'll both try and nullify. Callum Davidson's pretty good with his tactics. He's had this one. He's 3 at the back, 2 wing backs, and either 1 or 2 up top. And he's not deviated from it, even when we weren't winning games and we were losing, but he stuck with it. And I think that the team are finally kind of getting their head around it now, and it's kind of finally now working. So fair play to him for sticking with the formation. So I'm not expecting a classic by any stretch. Won't be one for the neutrals, unfortunately. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think it will reflect the earlier games in the season, in all honesty. The first game that we played, I don't think St Johnstone were in the best of form. We ended up winning 2-0. The last two, I think, have been kind of devoid of much football. St Johnstone very much deserved to win that last game, completely dominated most of the game. So it will be interesting. I think what will be interesting as well is that kind of tactical battle. Both teams are kind of capable of playing that back five. St Johnstone play it more frequently than Livy do nowadays, but it is something that has worked for Livingston in the past plenty of times. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how both teams kind of line up in that manner, if they go man for man with one another. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a particularly pretty game. I think it's going to be quite a battle, and yeah, one that hopefully will come out on the end of with a trophy.
What I'm particularly amazed at with St Johnstone is about 5 days after the Cup semi-final, they unveiled a brand new special commemorative kit that they're going to wear on the day. That's really not a St Johnstone thing to do, being on the ball with it. They've got a whole range of Cup final memorabilia, virtual tickets. You could buy the players' shirts. They've got hospitality at home boxes. Like I said, they've gone all out for this. The council have lit up the town blue and white with on bridges and big projector screens saying "Come on, you Saints" everywhere. So Saints are really getting behind it, and they've had to cash in on it, which they've done really well. You can't blame them for it. I think they've done commemorative magazines on top of the programme, so it's like 12 quid for a magazine, which basically just covers the run up to the final. All the players' tops are available for sponsorship. I think 200 quid ago they sold out in an hour. I think I heard they're doing a commemorative bottle of whiskey coming out at the end of the week, limited to 50. So they're really kind of pushing a boat out to try and cash in on this, and you really can't blame them for doing it.
Yeah, I liked St Johnstone made a tweet earlier that I thought was really good about. Obviously, people alluding to the fact that it's two smaller teams, or diddy teams, as some would put it. I thought that was really good for them. Obviously, kind of putting out there that we're in the cup final and that's where we deserve to be because of how we've played. But yeah, Livy have done basically the kind of same. They've released like a commemorative like gin brand or something like that as well. They've auctioned off like the tops that are going to be worn and stuff like that as well. So the main thing is that it's just a shame that we're not really going to be there to experience it. I was only 7 years old when Livy made their only ever National Cup final, so it's quite gutting that it won't be at Hampden Park to experience it. But St Johnstone have only been in the Scottish Cup final back in the early 2010s as well. So it's a shame for both sides that they can't be there to experience it, as well as the players. Obviously, like I said, Marvin Bartley for us, he's our captain. He won the Scottish Cup with Hibs and when they beat Rangers, but he never came on as a player. He's going to be leading us out at Hampden Park, and he's not going to be able to have his family or like any of his friends are out there, which is a real shame. There'll probably be some similar stories in the St Johnstone team as well. But yeah, it's going to be a good day, and two teams who I think deserve the limelight for their performances this season.
I'm just resigning myself to the fact we'll never see St Johnstone play at Hampden. The last two finals we had, one was at Celtic Park in 2014 because of the Commonwealth Games. The League Cup before that in 1998 against Rangers at Parkhead as well was because Hampden was getting reconstructed. Our last previous final before that was 1967. So I'll never see St Johnstone in a cup final at Hampden. Honestly, God, I swear to God, that's never going to happen.
Cursed.
Oh, tell you about it. Nightmare.
I think we just were both talking about there in the sense of being diddy teams, as you put it, but I think that actually adds to the occasion for both clubs. See, being like kind of, I would call them community clubs or town clubs, possibly. But I think that's what kind of adds to the occasion. I mean, St Mirren's quite local to where we stay, and I think 7 years ago they won it, but we've seen the kind of buzz that was about the place when they won it. The whole town was buzzing. I think about 80,000 people were lining the streets. Obviously, this weather that might not be so feasible after such a game. But I think in terms of both, it's a massive, massive day for both clubs, as you both alluded to. For Livy, it's been 2004, I believe, since they last won a cup, and St Johnstone, the Scottish Cup, 2014. So I think in terms of what you were saying, in terms of it not being not been the best game for the neutral, maybe. I would probably tend to agree with that, because I'm expecting it to start very, very cagey, because, as you say, for a lot of these players that can't win a lifetime game, a lot of them will start the game very early, I would imagine. That's why I'm expecting it to start off pretty cagey. But I think once the game settles down after 20, 25 minutes, we'll start to see the good aspects in both clubs. So I think they're both clubs that have surprised quite a lot of people this season. Particularly Livy, with the run they went on just kind of at the end of last year, starting this year, 14 games. I mean, I don't think anyone's seen that coming when Martindale got the job on a temporary basis to begin with. They obviously got the job full time, but St Johnstone as well. I watched a lot of their game against Motherwell at the weekend. I thought they were excellent. Motherwell were absolutely terrible. I'm not going to take any credit for that, but
they were
that is testament to how St Johnstone played, and it's no accident that Motherwell had one shot the whole game. I think St Johnstone had north of 20 shots anyway. And they absolutely battered them, as the scoreline would suggest. But 3-0 didn't flatter St Johnstone. If anything, it flattered Motherwell.
But that's nothing new for St Johnstone. Over the last 10 years, they kind of go under the radar. We've finished in the top 6 8 times in the last 10 years. 8 times. In Europe, 5 times. So it's probably works in our favour. I've spoken to a couple of players this week, and they like that, the fact that maybe Martindale will get the headlines this weekend. It means Saints can just go in and go about their business as usual, and they're not kind of the headline grabbers. The story is the fairy tale with Martindale. That's the whole story with this cup final. So that sets up Saints brilliantly for this, because they just come and do their job and hopefully head in the road with the cup.
Yeah, in terms of Livingston as well, I think we are probably one of the biggest underdogs in Scottish football in the last decade in that as well. Obviously, we talked about how Livingston went from League One, won the playoffs and the Championship to the Premiership, and then we're giving Rangers and Celtic games at the Tony Mac and stuff like that. Last season, we finished 5th on the points per game. This season, it looks as if we're going to finish in the top 6 again. For a team who realistically has probably got maybe the 12th, 13th, 14th biggest budget in Scotland, there is a good there is an entire league that you could fill with teams who have a better budget than Livingston. You look at the likes of Scott Pittman, who came from the juniors, Josh Mullen, we initially got him from Albion Rovers, Scott Robinson, who scored our goal in the semi-final. He was languishing at East Fife in League One when we signed him. So there's a lot of players in there who are that kind of level-headed as well. Obviously, they're talking about how they go in and do their business. I think that's exactly what this Livingston team is as well. It's a lot of very, very humble players who will just put in the graft, and it's worked so well for us in the last 4 years, and hopefully it works again on Sunday. But yeah, in a kind of way, as Sam said earlier, probably would have hoped for somebody like Hibs or that in the final, and I would agree with that, because I think both teams prefer that kind of underdog status and would want to go against the kind of proverbial favourites and take them on. But yeah, for Livingston, Martindale, yeah, the story is probably the main thing that is covering it, but I don't really think that takes away from most of the players' kind of mentalities. And Davey himself, if you've seen most of his conversations and his interviews and that, you'll know how much of a down to earth guy he is, and I don't think he'll let that come into play too much into his thinking.
Did you see the video of him lifting the trophy the other day for the presentation?
Oh, it's a nice trophy, that, isn't it? You see his comment as well about obviously how Livy are we're travelling individually by their own cars, and it was basically saying about how somebody's destined to get lost. He was like, I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to make sure that I'm behind Effie and that Marvin Bartley's in front of Effie to make sure he doesn't go to Parkhead instead.
I mind a story with Effie Ambrose way back in the day when we travelled to Barcelona. I forgot his passport.
Effie Ambrose is brilliant. I remember it was Ronnie Dyla's last game for Celtic. We were playing Celtic at McDermott, and he just had made a total arse of himself. I think we won 2-1 actually. I think going back. But
Dyla's last game, aye. Effie Ambrose is a bit of a cult hero.
He's a hero everywhere.
I absolutely can't hear a bad word said against Effie Ambrose. I absolutely loved him when he was at Celtic. But I think in terms of going back to the game, I've just basically put down that find it very, very hard to call. With that. I'm not trying to sound like I'm bottling it. I'm making a prediction, but the prediction I made was 1 each, and I've just put St Johnstone in penalties because I quite like Xander Clark's goalkeeper. But I'm well aware that Stryech made a save for Stevie May a couple of weeks ago, so I think it's going to be a very, very tight game.
In terms of penalties, Stevie May's he's ranked rotten at penalties. Everyone he's scored this season is kind of hit the keeper or bundled under the. It's just he's rotten at penalties. And funnily enough, Xander Clark, the first 2 penalties he ever saved for St Johnstone was in the cup quarters against Dunfermline. He'd never saved a penalty before that ever. So hopefully it doesn't go to penalties but at least there's no crowd there, so it's not going to be a case of nerves or anything like that. They can just go and play the game. But it's a shame for us because we took 15,000 to the Scottish Cup final for a size of Perth, which is 50,000. It's not a bad return. It's a shame that we're just going to have to sit. We're actually having a Zoom party to watch it. I can't think of anything more depressing, to be fair. But what can you do?
After you saying that, there I make a prediction 11 penalties. You've not filled me with confidence about the St Johnstone and penalty shoot.
There's not many keepers I would like to step up and face a penalty than our big Polish Max Stryjek. Just imagine him just absolutely screaming and shouting at the likes of Chris Kane and that as they're walking up or that. But in all honesty, actually, it's not 100% certain if he's going to start because Robbie McCrory started at the weekend just there for us. So it'll be interesting to see who he opts for in that manner. I don't think McCrory's played at all in the League Cup for us this season at all. So I would probably lean towards Max coming back in. But then maybe Robbie will get his chance furthermore later on in the season. But yeah, for me, I would probably go for the same as what Sam said, a 2-1 win, but I'll go for Livingston this time. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a very, very close game, and hopefully it doesn't go to penalties because I don't think I could take that.
Absolutely not. But I heard something today about the winner may possibly get the European spot because if the Scottish Cup can't be completed, then there may be a chance that they might move it to the League Cup winner, and I'll take that every day of the week if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, we'd be delighted as well. We've only been in Europe just the one time, so it'd be great for us to, even if it is just some random team in Macedonia or something like that, it would be absolutely amazing.
They're the worst ones, honestly. You think it's going to be a walkover and you get absolutely pumped abroad in Lithuania or something like that. It's rotten. Been on them trips.
I mean, in terms of you mentioned the tactical battle, I'm expecting Livy to shape up 4-2-3-1. I've got down. I think that's probably their most used formation this season against St Johnstone's 3-4-2-1. So I've got down that I'm kind of expecting Marvin Bartley to be arguably the most important player on the pitch because if he can stop St Johnstone's 2 number 10s, I think that will go a long way for Livy. So St Johnstone get Joy in the number 10 position with, I'm going to say probably Melamed and Witherspoon. If Witherspoon's fit, I know there's been kind of questions over whether Witherspoon's going to be fit for the game. But St Johnstone can get the ball to them and they kind of areas. I think St Johnstone will get a lot of success in the game.
Yeah, I would end up agreeing with you there. As you said, we'll probably line up a 4-2-3-1. The main area of concern, to be honest, that I would probably have is down our left-hand side and St Johnstone's right. Obviously, you talked about Sean Rooney earlier being quite a threat. The way that we kind of play, we have Jason Holt and Bartley are kind of like the sitting midfielders with Pittman closest to whoever the striker is. Then we have Josh Mullen on the right wing. And then on the left-hand side, we don't really play with an actual proper winger. It's usually Craig Sibbald who's kind of he's not really playing as a wide player. He's kind of playing as another number 10 in many ways. That could be something to be concerned about, especially if Sean Rooney's going to be lining up against just one player, Julian Serrano. The other side will have more cover from Josh Mullen, but I think Sean Rooney down that right-hand side is something that we need to look out for, especially if you say that St Johnstone are going to have 2 number 10s. All it takes is for that likes of Melamed or that to go over to that side, and it's a 2-on-1 situation. And that could be where the likes of Bartley is needed so desperately, is to get over to the other side of the pitch and basically help out our fullbacks and stop any dangerous crosses or that coming in.
Yeah, the number 10 Witherspoon for Livingston.
Sorry,
for Livingston. Sorry, was that? Where do you see the goals coming from? I think Scott Robinson starting there. That we said.
Well, Scott Robinson, apparently he's trained this week and apparently he's going to be fit for the final, so that's a massive boost for us. Although he has been on kind of like a decent scoring run this year, he isn't the most prolific overall. I would probably still say that Livy's best chances of scoring will be from set pieces. Our big John Guthrie is probably our player of the season so far. He scored a header against St Johnstone the second game that we played him. He actually missed out the game that we played most recently, and I think that he is one of the league's best centre halves. He's so good on the ball and he's so good in the air, and I feel like with like the Josh Mullins like deliveries and that, Guthrie's our top goal scorer in the league as well. I feel like we do have a big threat at the going forward there, but I think St Johnstone will probably feel similar that they can get goals from there as well. Other than that, probably somebody who probably won't start, but I think deserves a mention is Alan Forrest. He's the competition's top goal scorer this season. I think it's been really unfortunate since Martindale's came in. I don't know if it's because he's not the most industrious of players. He doesn't really do an awful lot of the kind of dirty work, but he's not really somebody you look at either and say he's particularly lazy. He's just obviously just prefers going forward. But I think he's somebody who should definitely be kept an eye on. As we're talking about this game, it's going to be very evenly contested. It could be a bit of a battle. It only takes that one moment of quality, and for Livingston, there's nobody more capable than Alan Forrest. He already scored a tremendous goal against St Johnstone earlier this season where he gets it on the edge of the box and curls it beautifully into the bottom corner. So I think he could be somebody who will have a big say on Sunday. That is if he comes off the bench and is offered that opportunity.
I definitely agree. I've not put Alan Forrest in my predicted Livy XI, if you like, but I was actually very surprised to see his stats for the Betfred Cup. He's scored 7 goals in 6 games. I don't know if it's because the competition kind of kicked off that long ago that it's kind of went out of memory, but he's obviously had a very, very big impact for Livy in the competition this season. And he's the kind of player that, see if the game's 0-0 or kind of on a knife edge with 25, 30 minutes to go, he's a good player to bring on. Good impact player, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. So you're looking for somebody to add a wee bit of pace, a wee bit of trickery, a wee bit of just somebody who will, something that quite a few Livy players can be quite guilty of is not taking chances. You don't have to ask Alan Forrest twice to have a wee dig on the edge of the box. Very similar to the way that his brother plays. He likes to cut in and fire shots away. He's no shy at scoring goals. I think he's got 4 or 5 in the league as well. So he's up to about 11 in his first season for the club. And you're talking about that as a player who probably for the past 2 months or so hasn't been starting regularly. But yeah, as you say there, he is definitely that kind of impact player that you're looking for and could be so pivotal on Sunday.
Actually, it took me by surprise when I looked earlier to see that Alan Forrest was actually Livingston's runaway leading goal scorer in all competitions this season.
We don't have an awful lot of proper goal scorers, obviously. A lot was documented at the start of the season. We started with Lyndon Dykes up front. He obviously got sold. It took us quite a wee while to figure out who was going to be the player to replace him up front. So we started off, we had Scott Tiffany, who unfortunately picked up a wee injury. He was actually playing really well. A young player, we believe we got from Morton a couple of years ago. Then we had Matej Poplatnik, a boy from Slovenia. We signed him from Kerala Blasters in India. He also got injured as well. So we also had J. Emmanuel Thomas, who divides opinion within the Livy support. He's quite an enigmatic character who sometimes looks as if he's absolutely tremendous, and then some weeks you're like, who is this guy? But so with the fact that those kind of players getting injured, we kind of stumbled upon Robinson up front. He'd done a job for us in a couple of seasons in the past, like the odd game there being up front just because of his intensity and how actually good he is in the air for somebody being about 5'7". Ever since then, though, he's been our number one. He's been our main man up front, and he's taken the chance with both hands, and he fully deserves it.
Am I right in saying he was a centre mid at East Fife?
I believe he was even a holding midfielder, in all honesty. I think he was kind of somebody who did the kind of dirty work. I mean, in all honesty, the way that he plays up front is kind of similar to the way he plays in midfield, just constantly battling, constantly being a nuisance, just being a wee, as David Martindale calls him, a wee wasp, just being a wee annoying pest, essentially. But yeah, coming from East Fife, I think he was somebody, he was at Hearts, obviously, Went to Kilmarnock, it didn't work out for him. He went to East Fife. I think he had a couple of bad injuries, and I think it was that Livy offered to pay for his. I can't mind what exactly surgery it was, but they offered to take him from East Fife and pay for that and get him into our squad. And although in the Championship he was pretty pivotal, the last 2 seasons he's kind of been in and out as a kind of a utility player, and it's pretty surprising to see him not only come into the squad but to be doing it as a striker as well.
I mean, from what obviously I'm not watching Livy every single week, but from what I've seen of Livy, he seems a very key component of the way Livy have adapted kind of to the slight transition under Martindale becoming head coach. Because from what I see in Livy now, the press is far more relentless, I think, and I think Robinson and Pittman in particular are crucial to that. I don't know if it was kind of similar under Holt, but I've kind of noticed a wee shift in Livy. I think now they like to press higher up the pitch, from what I've noticed, and certainly against Celtic anyway.
I think the main issue would have been that we lost Dykes, because not only was Dykes like our top goal scorer, as we've seen for Scotland, he is very industrious. He does put himself about, and we did really struggle to kind of find a replacement for him to do that. As you say, Robinson and Pittman, they're two players who will run themselves into the ground. Also, the addition of Jason Holt in the middle of the park. We usually have likes of the last couple of seasons in the Premiership. We had Keegan Jacobs and we had Sean Byrne, two players who are just full of energy. So to have somebody like Jason Holt in there who will do that kind of running as well. They've also done a really good job at making Craig Sibbald kind of move from that kind of silky kind of player to quite an industrious one as well. But yeah, Pittman and Robinson, they kind of communicate well together, and they kind of like spawn the trap essentially. Josh Mullen as well. Obviously he took over from Stephen Lawless, who we lost. Mullen's a wee bit more. He's got more pace to him, and he puts himself a bit more about as well. He obviously played right wing back for us in the Championship, so he is used to doing that kind of dirty side of the game. So I think those kind of subtle changes that were made, that all kind of came together at one point. Obviously we signed Josh Mullen very late in Gary Holt's tenure at the club, obviously stumbling across Robinson. So I think it is just kind of like a series of getting a whole bunch of things right at one time.
Something we alluded to earlier was the set pieces for both teams. I was kind of having a wee glance. Both teams have very, very similar stats this season in terms of goals for set pieces. I think they have 9, St Johnstone have 8. Obviously, St Johnstone in recent weeks have been absolutely flying at set pieces, particularly with Big Sean Rooney. But how crucial do both of you think that set pieces are going to be to the game?
Very simple as that. I think our back, we've got a big lot of boys in the team. Our two centre backs, Liam Gordon, Jason Kerr, Rooney, McCart, they're all 6 foot plus. Plus, you've got, if Murray Davison plays, he's really 50-50 at the moment. He might actually be out now. I think I've heard correctly. He might not make it at all, which would be a shame because he missed the Scottish Cup final as well through injury. So that'd be a sore one for the guy. But yeah, in terms of set pieces, scoring goals from corners, Spoonie's delivery is tremendous. He's been pound for pound our best player this season. You'd argue that it was maybe Rooney or for that Danny McNamara before he went back to Millwall, but pound for pound, I think Spoonie's been the best player, and if he can get his corners on point, then I think they'll be pretty vital. I think there'll be more goals from set pieces than there will be open play on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a very fair bet to make on that. You just look at the semi-finals. Livy's goal came from a set piece, and did 2 of St Johnstone's come through it as well?
Yeah, free kick in a corner, yeah.
The last game that we played against each other, Tanser scored a free kick, and it was a header from a free kick that sealed it as well. The game that we played before that, John Guthrie scores a header. So yeah, both teams are very effective from them. I agree that the set pieces could be the defining factor of the match, just depending on who it comes down to. Kind of similarly, St Johnstone might have the height advantage in all honesty, because when you look at our team, I know a lot of people like to say that Livingston are overly physical and all of that. You look at our team and it's only really, you got John Guthrie and Effie Ambrose who are properly over 6 foot. Then you've got Nicky Devlin, and then our next tallest is probably Serrano, about 5'10". Then you've got Pittman, Robinson, Mullen, who are all about 5'6", 7". So like perhaps that is something that St Johnstone will look to exploit and try and get as many bodies on as many players as possible and put it into an area where perhaps one of our smaller players has been isolated and try and capitalise from that.
It's funny you should mention that, actually. I was thinking about that earlier, because every time I've ever been to Almondvale, I've looked at Livy's team and thought they looked like absolute giants, but you actually look through their team now, it's a lot of guys, as you say, under 6 foot. It took me a wee bit by surprise.
I think it's because obviously when Livy came up and we had the back three of Gallagher, Halkett and Lithgow, who, make no mistake, are absolute behemoths. We also had Ricky Lamy playing as like a left wing back as well. And obviously using a big long throw, that instantly draws connotations to like Stoke City and stuff like that, doesn't it? But then you looked at the rest of that side and it was like Keegan Jacobs, Sean Byrne, Scott Pittman in the midfield, all under about 5'10". You also had Tolly Menga up front. I know he was an absolute machine. He was still only about 5'9", as well as Steve Lawless as well.
But it still didn't make the trip to Salmon Vale any better. The fact that you can only get a pint and have Wetherspoons in a shopping centre before the match, it was never a decent trip to Salmon Vale. That never set off a good day.
To be fair,
every time I've ever been there, I've not managed to get a pint before it, so at least I'm better than half at Almondvale. I've never seen a win there either, so.
Nah, the last way it went was, remember we went through, Saints were in a 22 game unbeaten run. We were in the first championship or first division at the time, right. And we thought, right, here we go, we'll beat Livy, and Lee Griffith popped up with our goal, like a 40-yard screamer against us. I've never seen a win there. No, I've never seen a win there either.
I think Griffiths it was a scissor kick, I think it was. I think he was playing up front next to Armand Oney, a cult hero of the Scottish lower leagues. Flicked it on, and Griffiths with a scissor kick, which, absolutely tremendous. But St Johnstone, I think actually, when we first came up, I think they were the first team to beat us at home that season. Obviously, when obviously Livy went on that run where they drew with Celtic 0-0, they beat Rangers, they just picked up points every time at Almondvale. St Johnstone picked up points then, so I think they are kind of teams who have always kind of taken points from each other whenever they can, in all honesty. A lot of the recent games in the past seasons as well, kind of a lot of draws are only being decided by one goal. Before last season, before the pandemic hit and the league was cut short, I think St Johnstone won 1-0. We won 1-0 prior to that, and I think there's a couple of draws in that as well. So I think that only just shows you that the game's going to be very, very tight, especially on a neutral venue like that.
Maybe with it being two kind of, as you say, community clubs or smaller clubs, maybe more people might want to tune in because it's not going to be what people expect to be a massive one-sided game, either Celtic taking on a Motherwell or an Aberdeen, just expecting to get the win. So it's one of these cup finals where you do not know who's going to win it. So it should be exciting stuff.
Yeah, just to go on that community club kind of aspect, Livy have probably only got maximum like 1,200 season ticket holders. But that time that we got to the final in 2004, I think we took about 8,000. Livy obviously struggle a lot from the fact that we were only formed in 1995. Growing up here, I'd probably say that Livy are probably the 7th best supported team in West Lothian. You've probably got Celtic, Rangers, Hibs, Hearts, probably even got like Aberdeen in that, who are got a better following here than Livy do. So hopefully that's the kind of thing that people kind of tune in for. Maybe even our neighbours in Edinburgh that might be kind of looking at us and be like, oh, on you go, like, the kind of like roots like that. But yeah, I hope a lot of fans are kind of tuning into it as something that is a change. It's not every day that you see two sides like this, and yeah, just make the most of the event. It's not going to happen every time. I'm sure Rangers and Celtic will be back to their usual nonsense soon enough. So yeah, enjoy it whilst we can.
And just to second that, at least you'll get the support of the Edinburgh teams. We'll get all the farmers up and down the east coast of Scotland tuning in from their tractors, so we'll be good to go.
Have you got one at St. Park driveway?
Aye, yeah, just a couple. Just, a couple of John Deeres. That's how we roll up here.
Just moving on for the Cup final then. Livingston kind of seem dead set for top six finish. What about St Johnstone, Sam? You confident they'll make it into that top six?
About 3 or 4 weeks ago, no. But another good result tonight with Motherwell and St Mirren drawing 0-0. We've got Hamilton and Ross County in our last 3 games. We've got Hibs, Hamilton, and Ross County. I think we'll do it. Dundee United aren't on any decent form. St Mirren aren't much shake. So yeah, I do think we'll make it in the top 6 again. We've got a habit of doing that. I think last season we were bottom at Christmas and still snuck in above Hibs on the last day of the season based on the point thing, the COVID breakdown. But notoriously,
wasn't it that you went in the top 6 the entire season, and then the league gets called, and then points per game takes you in the top 6?
No, we were opposite. We were bottom of the table. We were 12th going in, and then we just went on a massive run, and we were sitting 7th. But we had a game in hand over Hibs, who were a point ahead of us, so it took us above them on the day. So get it right, Brindam.
I've got to say, I've got to hold my hands up and say I seen St Johnstone the first game of last season. Well, I think it was the first game anyway. They came to Parkhead and get absolutely
7-0.
stuffed 7-0. I thought they're an absolute dead cert for relegation, and as they continually do, they proved me wrong that season. So
they're good at that. What that was
got to hold my hands up to that one.
Yeah, it was the start of a transition period for the team. A lot of the older guys left. Tommy Wright had brought in 4 or 5 youngsters to kind of bed them in for the season. Wallace Duffy came in; he was ranked, so I think he scored a blinder for Inverness last night. But Ali McCann was another youngster that kind of came in. He came off the bench in that 7-0 game, and I reckon he'll probably end up replacing Scott Brown at Celtic. Throwing a controversial comment out there, but he's that good. He's going to be with us. He's on a 4-year deal we gave him, which is brilliant for us. So we'll get a good bit of cash from him. I think he'll probably be a record transfer, and he's one to watch on Sunday. He's box to box. He's fully capped by Northern Ireland now. Scotland missed a trick to them by not getting him signed up, but he's a standout player. He's brilliant wherever he is, even off the ball. He's young. He's still under 20 years old, and could be the next big one.
I've got to say, I actually kind of agree with you there. Anytime I've seen him, he's been absolutely a standout for St Johnstone. He's full of energy. He loves to get the ball forward, I think. But I think the stats about 80% of his passes are forward passes. So he's a forward-thinking player for a kind of deep position. He's the kind of player I like, to be honest. I like watching him.
He's
probably, I dare say they'll have a job in their hands in the summer keeping holding.
Yeah, as long as we get a good bit of money. The fact that our manager is our highest transfer fee of just under $2 million in 1998, he left to go to Blackburn, Callum Davidson. So he's still our record transfer fee, which is, I don't think he'll mind if that gets beaten, if it'll go into his transfer pot.
Absolutely not, So just obviously we spoke a lot about Martindale.
Sorry, you can't do.
I'm sorry. We spoke a lot about Martindale and how he's transformed Livy tonight. We've not actually spoke a lot about how Callum Davidson's obviously he was Tommy Wright's assistant last season as well, wasn't he? So how has St Johnstone's approach kind of changed from transitioning from Tommy Wright to Callum Davidson?
Well, what had happened was Callum actually left the year before. He went to become first team coach at Stoke with Gary Rowett. I think it was Stoke. And then he was at Millwall just now. So we had Alec Cleland in a second. So Tommy Wright had left, and Callum was always going to get the job. It was the first name that came up, and it was just a case of getting the man. Because Saints they aren't ambitious when it comes to managers. They have a certain fit or a mould to. Because like I said, they're not in the habit of bringing in random people or foreigners and sacking them. I think when Owen Coyle, player to manager, then Derek McInnes, player to manager. Stevie Lomas was the odd one that came in. But it was a good appointment. He brought Tommy Wright as his assistant, so he only came with one season. Tommy Wright was assistant, then he took over, then he left. So Davison. So it's always a progression with managers. It's not a kind of a hiring and firing type of place. So the transition was always smooth. He knew all the players when he came in, so there wasn't any issue with that. Tommy Wright played 4-4-2. That was it, 4-4-2 all the time. So he actually signed Sean Rooney as a right back initially. So when Davidson came in and started playing with wing backs, Rooney was nowhere near the team. He came in, I think, a game against Kilmarnock and played the wing back, and he was rank. He was rotten. He'd never played the position before. He's just a good old fashioned right back. So we brought Danny McNamara in from Millwall, who was superb, standout player the first half of the season. They obviously recalled him in January because he was playing that well. So Rooney had to kind of fill that role, and I think he's kind of got to grips with it now. He's he's fast for a big boy. He's strong in the air. And the thing with Davison is he's stuck to his formula. He had his formation, the kind of 3 at the back, 2 wing backs, and a combination of 1 or 2 up top. And he stuck with it even when we were losing 1 or 2-0. December, we had a terrible December, lost to St Mirren. Lost to Livy. We just couldn't get going at all. But he stuck with it and stuck with it and stuck with it. And I think when it came to the cup semi-final against Hibs, we were battered for the first half an hour, and then all of a sudden it just clicked, and we're not going to look back since for whatever reason. I don't know if that was a confidence builder, but he's a man. He's a clever guy, Callum Davison. He's pretty shrewd. He doesn't kind of get drawn into controversy. Remember the Neil Lennon comments about the sardine tin changing rooms at McDermott? But I've trained in these. Well, I've been in these changing rooms. The AstroTurf ones underneath the stadium. They're massive. There's 4 of them. They're huge. So Callum Davison was interviewed about it, and he went, "We've made a statement. I'm not saying any more." And he doesn't get kind of drawn into things. He just sticks to the football. He's toes the company line. He won't kind of get drawn into like a Lennon style rant or anything like that. He's pretty cool and calm. Imagine he'll be the same on Cup final day. If they win it, he'll hug a couple of the players, lift the trophy, and he'll be back to normal on Monday. So he's a cool character.
Toff, I'll let you get on to what you were going to say a minute ago before I interrupted you.
Just adding on what you were saying there, McCann, I was actually quite critical of Callum Davison at the start of the season. I think it was like the 3rd game of the season. St Johnstone played St Johnstone played Rangers at Ibrox. I think we won 3 or 4-0, and it was probably the most comfortable Rangers have played St Johnstone in a good couple of years. So I kind of thought maybe the style of football Davison was trying to impose wasn't going to work, but he kind of turned around obviously in the cup final. But what I was going to say was you mentioned Alan McCann obviously came through the ranks. There's actually quite a few St Johnstone players looking to line up in the start 11 and Sunday coming through the ranks, and I think they get a lot of credit for that. St Johnstone, you've got Xander Clark, Jason Kerr, I think Liam Gordon came through at 19.
Chris Kane, Stevie May. And Witherspoon's been there for 10 years. Davison's been there for 10 years. Liam Craig's been there for 10 years. So it's a good mix of squad. The midfield is, we brought in Charlie Gilmore, a guy from Arsenal, Norwich, good pedigree youngster, but the midfield's kind of looking a bit aged. We've got Bryson in there, Conway. Witherspoon's not a youngster. Murray Davidson is in his 30s now, so it's a good mix between the older and the younger guys now. So it's pretty good. But yeah, we were due a couple of youngsters coming through. Like I said, Xander Clark's bide his time to kind of become the number 1 now, and he's a good solid keeper. He's probably just not. St Johnstone aren't a fashionable team to get players in the Scotland squad, so Dave Mackay, I reckon, was probably the best right back in the country for years. Every player I've spoke to has said Dave Mackay, the best right back and not to be capped by Scotland. It's just because Saints aren't a fashionable team. That's pretty much what it's down to, and it's a shame because they kind of get overlooked for bigger moves. Tommy Wright probably the same when he was in charge of Saints. He should have been long gone. He should have moved on to bigger and better things well before he left.
Even looking at the kind of Scotland squad for us as well, it took until Lyndon Dykes had left Livy for him to get called up, and I don't think anybody would look back. And I think the thing that what happens with teams with players who play for the likes of Livy and St Johnstone, even though they go on like kind of like good runs, to most of the country, because they only support 2 sides, they just go, oh, you can't just put him in because he's played well against Celtic and Rangers. But when you actually look at it furthermore, you'll see that what they actually do. Lyndon Dykes did that entire season for Livingston. Not only what he did against Christopher Julian, he did against most centre-halves most weeks. Probably more so at home. Probably Livy's away form probably hindered him in that way as well. But yeah, to echo Sam's thoughts on Dave Mackay, he was obviously a player at ours as well, who St Johnstone signed him from alongside with Murray Davidson. Completely agree. What an absolute tremendous player he was. I remember when we were in the Championship, I think he scored, I think he was about 12 goals or something from right back, and then obviously went on to be a really, really solid player for them. So yeah, completely agree with that. Somebody who I think for Livy, you obviously mentioned Sean Rooney as a potential right wing back option for Scotland. Nicky Devlin's been one of our better players as well, and I think he's another player who's probably better suited and having a better season than Stephen O'Donnell is at Motherwell right now. But in our Livy circle, we're kind of talking about that and seeing that there is a potential gap that somebody like him could go into, but it doesn't get any mainstream attention because it is Livingston, even though they have been one of the better teams in the country this season. you're probably still more likely to get somebody from Hearts called up than you are Livy.
Absolutely. Absolutely echo both of your points there. I mean, Xander Clark's one, we've tried to be champion for a Scotland call for probably the best part of 3 years now. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't come from. In terms of Nicky Devlin's one, I forgot to actually mention this earlier. His play seems to predominantly be down the right-hand side. Is that something that you think will have a factor in the game? Obviously, I'm expecting Devlin and Josh Mullen to be playing on the right-hand side, probably against Callum Booth and McCart, probably.
Yeah, it'll either be Booth or Tanzer. That's our one kind of big talking point.
I had Tanzer down originally, but it's just because Booth played against Muller where I thought, I think Davidson came out and said some words to the kind of effect that don't change a winning formula, so that's what kind of made me think Booth in my head.
In terms of the way that Livy kind of play that side, we talked about earlier how on the left-hand side we don't really play with an actual winger, and it's more like Craig Sibbald's kind of like another, kind of like a central kind of player, and that is basically the main reason for kind of doing that. Josh Mullen's our kind of main crossing threat as well. Nicky Devlin's got an abundance of energy. So, yeah, there is no shock to kind of see that. That is the kind of game plan that they play. I don't know if it is. I think Davy Martindale certainly favours, like, Scott Pittman. He plays no matter what. He's first name on the team sheet. Marvin Bartley's captain, so he's always going to play as well. Craig Sibbald is a really good player, and so is Jason Holt. And I think it may be an instance of we can't really drop either of them because they bring so much to the kind of system that we play. So I think that is why both of them do feature. And in essence of that, the play comes down the right-hand side because there is literally somebody always there. Also from like your kind of like kick-outs and that, we've already mentioned about how the Livy team's quite smaller. We kind of try to get Nicky Devlin quite high up and try and play to him to flick on to other players. Whether that'll be as effective against St Johnstone, who knows? But yeah, the way that Livy play is predominantly down the right-hand side. I think a lot of us, obviously we talked about Alan Forrest as well. When Martindale came in, we were hoping that they would start to get that balance going, but it doesn't really seem to have changed that way. But you can't really complain about the results that have came from that kind of formula either. We've done well enough without playing the two at the same time. Could probably make an argument now that it might be the time to try and start bedding that in with no wins in the last 3 games, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes on from there.
In terms of the game psychology, if you like, does the fact that St Johnstone ended Livy's phenomenal run only a few weeks ago, does that play into your mind, Angus, and does it concern you in any way? Or does it not affect your thoughts for a game of this magnitude regardless?
I wouldn't think so. There may be that kind of like head-to-head factor, but then you could also counteract that with the fact that Livy have beat St Johnstone twice this season. That game that we played just recently there as well, we were missing quite a few key players. No Serrano, no Mullen, no Guthrie either. And we still managed to, well, it was 2-1, and we had a chance very late on that could have snatched a draw. So I don't think there'll be an awful lot of fear regarding that. St Johnstone were much better on that day, but they didn't put it completely out of sight for us. Obviously, they did come away with a victory in the end, but I don't think it was that resounding a victory. See if, like, for example, if we'd got beaten off of them, like St Johnstone absolutely hammered Motherwell at the weekend, possibly so, but I don't think the kind of gap is that big between the sides, and obviously the 2 results early in the season as well kind of weigh against that.
Yep.
With me, it's a cup final. No relevance at all to the league thing. Anything can happen. Said our last cup final against Dundee United, they hit the crossbar, they hit the post. Things just go for you on the day. It can be a stroke of luck sometimes, but you can't really take league form into a cup final. It's a one-off game. Players could start shiting themselves. You just don't know how people, certainly the younger St Johnstone players, how they're going to react to it. So who knows?
Absolutely.
I don't know if it was mentioned earlier on I was having technical issues, but also there's been a lot made about the Martindale fairy tale story, but obviously I think I'm right in saying when Tommy Wright won the Scottish Cup in 2014, it was his first season in charge, and now Callum Davison's got a chance to emulate that. So fairy tale story for both.
It would be. We talked about this on our on the Dogger Saints podcast. Get that plug. If Callum Davidson was to League Cup, would it be the most successful? Would he be the most successful Saint of all time? Because he's won the Scottish Cup as assistant. He's still the highest transfer fee for the club, and win the League Cup as a first-time manager. But Callum wouldn't even mention that. He wouldn't bring up the fact that it's his first season. He likes being under the radar type of thing. But we're actually getting more limelight than we did under Tommy, because I think people realise now if they watch St Johnstone, they're actually playing good football. They're getting the ball down. They're playing it. They're a decent squad now, and we're not being referred to as long ball merchants or cloggers or rugby teams or there's a shit pitch in McDermott. I'd like you probably get the same kind of the patter about them as well when teams lose to. Because when teams lose to St Johnstone or Livingston, the opponent, the opposite manager, will just come out and just say, well, they don't play football, they're anti-football, they're defensive, they're this or that, the next. And they don't get, St Johnstone or Livy don't get the credit for the victory. Angus, you'll probably be as frustrated with this as I am.
Oh, so much so. In all honesty, if you look at most of the pitches in Scotland right now, look at Ross Counties that they played Celtic on just there, you look at Easter Road and that right now, it absolutely baffles me that people would say that they'd rather play on a pitch like that than our surface. It makes no sense at all. Everybody kind of goes on about on a 3G pitch that, the ball rolls differently and the ball bounces differently. Look at the pitches that have got like no grass and they're all bumpy as heck. There's absolutely no way that it runs better on a pitch like that. The injuries thing is the thing that everybody brings up as well. There's nowhere near as many injuries as it's made out to be. The main one that's made out is the fact that Jamie Murphy got injured at Rugby Park. I think that was about 3 years ago, and in the same, I think it was the same month, Christoph Berra did the exact same thing on the grass pitch at Tynecastle, but nobody talks about it. And yeah, the pitch is always a complete excuse when Livy play teams, no matter who it is. Like Livy could beat, say, like Ross County or that, and people would still be complaining about like the pitch as if it is what is the main factor in the game. And the fact that the credit that the club haven't got in the last couple of years is astounding because of it.
It's just the wee rubber black pellets you get in your boots. That's what annoys me about these 3G pitches when I'm playing flags and that. Just have to empty the boots outside before you get in the front door, before you don't get shouted by the missus.
Yeah, that is to be fair, when Livy first did lay that pitch, there was a massive problem with that you could just see black pellets everywhere. But I don't know, I kind of do feel as if the kind of 3G kind of pitch debate is a generational thing, because everybody's now training and playing on them every weekend. Well, speaking for West Lothian examples, all the main teams here, I don't know if you know like the boys' clubs and all of that, they all have 3G pitches and that now. There is no issue. The future of our game is on 3G because everybody is using them. So I think it is something that will probably slowly go away. And obviously, as the years go on, the pitches will improve in that as well. It's not saying that they are perfect. It's just saying that the differences between the two aren't that enormous as it's made out to be.
I think the best thing Livy have done to kind of counteract that, if you like, is brought their away form up to a level on a kind of par with their home form. Because I think maybe certainly the first season they were up, their whole foundation was built in solid home form. So it was easy for a lot of folk to kind of point the blame to that, if you like. But the best thing they could have possibly done was get their away form back in a par with that, which is what they've done. Certainly.
Yeah, I think we have won more away games than we have home games this season. I don't know if our form, I think we're a couple of points ahead from on away points. The fact that we've went to McDermott Park. What was that?
Was that because the players prefer playing on grass?
When they say so. I don't think the team's changed an awful abundance of a lot either. Believe me, the way that Livy's pitch was in the championship when we last had the grass pitches, we'll all be glad that we don't have a grass pitch anymore. Oof! There's a game that we played against Morton, and the guy was taking one of the club photographers was just taking a wee bit, just taking photos of the pitch, and you could probably spot about 12 massive holes that were just dug up by people like just running about. Insane.
So we'll move on to St Johnstone Livingston Cup final, and we'll move on quickly to the relegation battle. Ross County obviously taking a massive 3 points off of Celtic on Sunday. Let's not forget, what a result. McCann, your man, Yogi Hughes. You happy for him?
I mean,
Must have been buzzing for
no.
Yogi.
I'm absolutely not happy for him, but obviously,
You've been saying
Yogi came out and told the world.
world.
Oh no, I mean, I respect him. Like, I think he's a very good manager. Deals with his resources very well, gets an attractive style of football into the bargain. But I mean, he came out and told the entire world. He came out to the Sky cameras, told everyone how he was going to play. Played exactly that way, and we couldn't work it out. It was honestly baffling. I mean, you can point to the chances we missed in the first half. I mean, some of the chances, but the one with Christie, 5 yards for goal, ballooning it out the pitcher. I know it's a tiny stadium, but it's still an impressive feat to do that 5 yards for goal. But I mean, Ross County had to make that appointment when they did. I mean, I sang their praises for making the appointment when they did. I mean, they were going absolutely nowhere under Kettlewell. If you don't go down to Celtic Park, obviously. But I mean, I believe they've got into 10th place now. The writing looks on the wall for Kilmarnock. I mean, Sam will obviously know they've made a very astute appointment, but whether it's too little too late with 10 games left of the season, perhaps. I mean, every time I've watched Kilmarnock this season, I've thought they were awful, to be honest. Particularly a few weeks ago when they played in front of the Sky cameras, I thought that's as easy as I've seen Kilmarnock beaten in a long, long time. Even since, obviously, we all know what happened to them under Stevie Clark, but even since before the days, that they never used to get beat as easily as that at Rugby Park. So I think, unless Tommy Wright can wave his magic wand, I think the writing's on the wall for them, certainly. I would like to reiterate that I said 2 weeks ago that I thought they would just about finish 10th place and be safe. But I mean, after Yogi's masterclass, I'm starting to think that the writing could be in the wall for him.
I would.
Sam, you get off for Kamal.
I think with Tommy Wright, I think the one thing he needs is time, and he doesn't have it. So that's where my concern with that is. I think if he got brought in January, he could bring in a couple of his own boys. I think that might have helped, but I think you'll be in the playoff. I think Hamilton, who notoriously, when you put your Christmas tree away in the attic, Hamilton decide to come out and then start playing. That's when they kick into life for some. Every single season.
It's a total buffer. I mean, been wanting rid of Hamilton for, I don't know, probably since he came up, to be honest with you. And as I've said many times, it's not that I don't like them as a club per se. I just hate that stadium. I don't know what your opinion is on it, but I just
I had my worst ever footballing experience. Yeah, it's ranked rotten, but I don't think they'll do it this season. It's the first fixture I checked when the fixture list come out at the start of the season. If you're playing Hamilton in February or March, you're fucked basically. You don't want to be playing them then. You don't want to be playing Hamilton then.
I'm sure we've got them before the split takes place as well, so that'll be really fun for us. But hopefully we can keep another plastic pitch in the top flight.
Tough, thank you. I think a bit there just so you're aware of it.
But yeah, I'm thinking.
I think you were. I think a wee bit there. Tough.
I think it'd been. I think I'd only get. We'll just finish off with the big game of the week tomorrow. Never mind that cup final of the weekend. Rangers versus Antwerp at Ibrox tomorrow evening. None of the Rangers fans have turned up tonight, so
usual.
I don't know who to take.
Who to give the question to. We're just going to sit and bully you. No, I mean, I've got to say, I think game at all last week.
Last week, obviously.
Sorry for letting you go on.
So I was just saying that last week, obviously, it was a bit of a surprise how Rangers played. They've been so organised all year and just took the foot off the gas. It was a great game to watch on neutral. It could have been about 7 each. there was 3 dubious penalties. Luckily, 2 in Rangers' favour because one was a game. But
there's a shock.
I think at Ibrox, I think it'll be a different game.
3 penalties this time.
It pains me to say this, but Truffles was. It pains me to say this, but Truffles last week on the podcast talking about that Rafalov was spot on. The boy looked a right player. But I think it'll be about controlling him, stopping him, maybe Link Kamara close him. Rangers being the last 16.
There's only so much you can credit him with being spot on. He had a Wikipedia page opened and said how many goals he'd scored this season. I wouldn't give him too much credit. But to be honest, I've seen very, very little of the game. I've got to say I was expecting Rangers to win by at least a goal or two, to be honest. But I know we had Higgins on last week, who's kind of ties to Antwerp through his work. But I've got to say, I was actually watching the Britney Spears documentary rather than embarrassing myself. I was up to on Thursday night now that Celtic are it.
I watched Mean Girls. That was my film of choice.
So, Toff, you're on your own talking about what
See, because that's I'm back in the weekend.
Blew it at the last minute.
So, Toff, I take it you're confident.
Finish up on also St Johnstone. I'm confident. I don't see any reason why not to be. Rangers in Europe this year have been sensational, to be honest. Conceding 3 goals last week was a shock, to be honest, and we could have conceded a lot more. But Alan McGregor kept us in the game. It's not the first time this season it's happened. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't comfortably win tomorrow. I'd say 3-1. Joe Rebo was amazing at the weekend, so hopefully he starts and brings that form into the game.
Rangers will just need to hope Truff's favourite man, Rafaelov, isn't playing.
What's the Rangers' ambition for Europe this year?
Just to jump in, Rafaelov, right? Absolute legend, right? And I was the one to stop it. I was the one to call it, right? Right. That's all I'm going to say to you. And if you have a wee look at my name just now, right, that's the only reason that I'm happy right now. But carry on, boys. Lennon's gone. What a joyous day it is. Won the hoop.
No, look, you just said what's the ambition for Rangers this year. Getting out of the group stage is good for, I think, any Scottish team. It's a luck of the draw. So last year we pulled by a Leverkusen out the hat. People at that level that you can't complain. Just need to see how each round goes on and hope for the best.
I was just curious. That was all. Speaking of Rangers fan.
I would just finish by touching on touching on predictions for the weekend. I was never actually said earlier on, but I think it's going to go extra time, and I fancy St Johnstone in extra time. Sean Rooney winner.
Obviously I've said I'm expecting it to go to penalties, but if you put a gun to my head and said who's going to lift the trophy, I would probably just about go St Johnstone. But if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have went on. So that's why I'm really stuck on a prediction. I went 1-1, and the lottery are penalties. As much as the 2 boys probably don't want to hear that, I'm fully expecting to go penalties after a draw.
It's just too close to call, to be honest. I think it's going to be a very, very tight game for probably one each after 90 minutes, going to extra time, and it's really anyone's game. Livy might throw on Alan Forrest, he might pull an absolute worldie out of nowhere. You just really don't know. So I'm probably going to side with McCann and say one each, extra time, and then St Johnstone in penalties.
I mean, that's perfectly fine for me. Livy are always used to being the underdogs, and we'll go into this one yet again. Hopefully prove more people wrong. But yeah, as you say, like, you can't really moan about anybody kind of saying that the game could go either way, in all honesty. 2 evenly matched teams, and hopefully it's a good spectacle for both clubs and the kind of nation's sport as a whole. But yeah, I'm going to go for 2-1 Livingston. Hopefully Scott Robinson repeating his heroics in the semi-final and the final this time?
I don't know. The more I've been speaking to you guys, I'm now not convinced Saints will win, but I was confident before I came on. No, I think if it's a cup final, you just don't know. Saints could easily win 4-0, or we could get scuttled. We could be 3 down in the first 10 minutes. You just don't know what's going to happen. But with the form we've got, the players, I think they're all pretty level-headed. Callum's the most laid-back man. I think we'll go in there pretty confident, and I think we'll probably win 3-1.
Is that one more goal than you said earlier?
Cam Davison's got his 50 for this one.
He's not confident, but he's went one more goal earlier than he said.
4-1 then, get it round you. I'll just keep adding them on.
Hopefully, the more you add on, the more it comes back to bite you on Sunday.
Easily. But, no, it'll be a few sleepless nights between now and then. Shame we can't get there because, like I said, Livy we took 15,000 at the Scottish Cup, so you probably would have been able to hold it at some place like Easter Road or that, and it would have been packed out, which I think a half-full Hampden for a cup final wouldn't have looked great. So if it was Saints took 12 or 13,000, Livy took 7 or 8, then 20,000 would have looked good in some place like Easter Road in second thoughts. But it maybe a bonus that's maybe not got fans are allowed in the ground just for it to look like a spectacle.
Yeah, it's just great for those players to have that moment in the spotlight. Obviously, kind of alluded to the likes of like Scott Pittman and that, who played at junior level not too long ago. For them to now be playing at the National Stadium is absolutely tremendous. And yeah, hopefully they make the most of it and make us proud on Sunday.
I second that. Apart from the Livy audits there. I don't like handling a ground, except for big, massive Scotland games. If it's not a sellout, it's just you're too far away from the pitch. Like the best ground for me in Scotland is Tynecastle because you're right on top of the pitch. It's a great away trip. Like if the game was there, it'd be good, tremendous.
I've got to absolutely echo that. I mean, Hampden's probably my least favourite ground to go to in the country, and I would totally echo the Tynecastle. I've only been to Tynecastle I think twice in my life, but both times I've been, the atmosphere is just electric. It's a fantastic stadium to visit. So tightly compact onto the pitch. Brilliant place to go.
Yeah, for some place like that, we probably would be able to accommodate the Saints and Livy fans wanting to go to it. It would have been sold out. It would have been great. The atmosphere would have been absolutely brilliant. But an empty Hampden, if it was going to be empty, might as well just have it at Hampden, let the players have their moment in the National Stadium.
Yeah,
I've just received a message for Toff. I've just received a message for Toff there. I think he's pretty much out of sync now, and he's asked me to finish up if I am so inclined. So you just get anything you want to add, boys, before we finish up?
Just thanks for having us on again, and come on, Livy.
Yeah, cheers, boys. Thanks for that. It's been a good chat, and thanks for all backing us back in St Johnstone on the cup final.
No, thanks very much for being on, boys. It's been fascinating to hear your takes on the game, and I hope both of you thoroughly enjoy the game, no matter what way it goes. I know one of you will be absolutely depressed on the end of it, but I hope it's a great game, and I'm sure it will be.
I've got bacon rolls and champagne for my breakfast that day, so who knows?
Right. Well, I think that's it. We've been on for about an hour and 20 minutes now, so I think that's a good time to wrap things up. So, as I said, thanks very much for coming on, boys. I hope you thoroughly enjoy the game.
Brilliant. Thanks again. Great show, guys. Cheers.